Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Enchanting Lawyer Podcast. This is your host, Jacob Sapochnik, and this is a show where we interview the most inspiring entrepreneurs, business people, and just creative individuals that inspire us to do our work better. And today I have a very cool and exciting guest. Her name is Baya Voce, and as a cast member of MTV's The Real World, Baya transformed her TV exposure into an abundant business and speaking career. She has founded 3 companies, most recently Secret SLC, based around being bold and building powerful relationships to leverage success. Baya is a nationally recognized leader and professional development expert and appears monthly on a top ABC affiliate station at Salt Lake's resident relationship specialist. She traveled nationally researching emotional intelligence, studying positive psychology, body language, NLP, and mentoring under intimacy experts. Baya, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here. How are you?
Hi, I'm so great. Thanks so much. I'm really excited.
And you are, just so listeners know, you're in Salt Lake right now as we're recording this, right?
I am, yeah.
Excellent. I met Baya personally at an event that we both attended, and I loved Utah. I loved the people there, and you're just another example of the cool people there that come from that beautiful state.
Yay, I love Salt Lake.
So Baya, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I mean, you have a very interesting background. You were a reality TV personality. So just tell us about your background. How did you get to do this, and what you do today?
Yeah, so I was on MTV's The Real World. Gosh, I guess it's about 8 years ago now. I was 21. On the show, and while I could say that it was a total accident and my friend just dragged me around, it was really like I was going to make it on a reality show. I really wanted to be on TV. It was kind of like, I don't know, something I had wanted since I was a kid. So when I got cast on the show, I moved to Brooklyn, and I was so excited, and it was moving to Brooklyn and being on the show that really got me interested in relationships. And I think because it was like being dumped in this kind of odd sociological experiment, where you have cameras around you, house with people that you're meant to not get along with, and they know there's going to be controversy around, it was just being dumped in an experiment. And so I got fascinated with really this question, who am I being in order for people to be who they are towards me? Mm-hmm. So I'll say that one more time just because it's kind of tricky. Who am I being in order for people to be who they are towards me? And I just thought, if I am being reacted to a certain way, there's a reason. And if more than one person is reacting to me in a certain way, to dissect what that was and why I was either liked or not liked, trusted or not trusted, why I would get boyfriends or not get boyfriends. So that whole question really made me dive into my first company, which was matchmaking. So I was a matchmaker.
Wow.
I really was not very good at it. I probably had no business being a matchmaker, but I got some success stories. I got some horror stories as well, where I would have women calling me up like, "What did you do?" I was like, I swear, I thought they were. So I had some really interesting stories come out of that. But after that, I moved into the coaching realm. And what I would see over and over again is I would see these men go into dating situations like a first date, right, and where they were great guys and I saw them as great guys, they would botch it on their first date. And they would never be able to get any further than that because of simple things they were doing that they didn't realize. I mean, it was in their blind spot. So I became a men's dating and did date coaching for a while and loved it. And then I've since sort of developed into working with women and now into more relationship curation. And I call myself a relationships curator. And I don't know, I probably made that name up. I don't know if that title even exists in the world, but that's okay. So what I do now really is I gather people together to have shared, unique experiences that inspire connection. Because what I know is that powerful relationships create movements. Mm-hmm. They start part blocks of what the richness of life is made out of. So I've sort of taken this romantic relationship work that I've done into more of, I mean, I work with professionals, I host different types of experiential events for people, all with the same idea that I want to curate these spaces
Right.
so that people have powerful connections with one another.
And I think that it's just so interesting, the combination of what you do, because those are things that we as professionals, we need those tools. And you mentioned the person who goes, an attorney who's trying to get a client and they don't like him and they go to somebody else. So it's kind of similar things that happen when we meet people the first time.
Absolutely.
But Bea, before we go into the some of the things that I wanted to ask you about what you do, when I told people that I'm going to get a person that was on a reality TV show, they told me, listen, ask her how much of the stuff that happened on the camera was actually scripted and how much was actually things that really happened there. And I'm curious myself to know, like, did you guys get any direction as to what you're supposed to be doing, or you could be yourself?
That is a great. We were cast as characters,
Mm-hmm.
and not that that's what they were telling us through the audition process, but I knew going in what my typecast character was going to be
Mm-hmm.
and what kind of character they wanted me to portray. And then, especially after meeting all the other people in the house, it becomes very clear the quote unquote character that they want you to play on TV. So for our season, for instance, we had the transgendered girl,
Mm-hmm.
we had the we had a military veteran, we had an actual girl, we had the kind of meatheady guy, we had I mean, you name it, we kind of had these
Right.
archetypes. So what happened was actually the real world in specific is interesting because it's one of the only reality shows that's not scripted.
Mm-hmm.
So while it wasn't scripted and they didn't tell us what to do, if you didn't play the character, you didn't get airtime. Like there was no camera around you. There was, if you didn't play into that sort of archetype that they needed to get their you just didn't really get airtime. And so it's not scripted. The long answer to a short question, it's not scripted, and you also know that you're kind of there as an archetype.
I
But
see.
what they did do, for instance, for me, I had one of the things that I went on for is I was dancing professionally. I wanted to be a
Mm-hmm.
hip hop dancer. And so one of my storylines was auditioning to be on this hip hop dance to do this hip hop dance conservatory. And then at the I decided I made it in and decided I the end they were like, why don't you just audition for something else? Like, wouldn't that be kind of a good wrap up to all of this? And I decided not to. But that would have been for them, that would have been the storyline that they wanted is girl comes to audition, decides she doesn't want to do it, and then at the end gets into another company or something like that. So they kind of requested it of me, but I didn't do it, and I didn't need to do it.
Right, right. But you knew that you had to stay kind of in character, based on what they expected you to do.
Yeah, but
Mm-hmm.
that was not said. So this was all sort of under the radar.
Of
It's
course.
not like for me, this kind of came to light to me after I got off the show when I realized, oh, I didn't give the camera what they wanted, and I wasn't on the show that much. So I think I some of the people knew better than I did probably if they wanted more airtime how to get it. I was kind of a late bloomer and learned after all it was all said and done.
Yeah, but that's really interesting because we're always wondering. I mean, I saw an interview with Spencer Pratt from The Hills, and he specifically said that in his case they had forced him to be the guy that he was, and
Yeah,
it's interesting because a lot of people, we didn't know that, but obviously, as reality show become more popular, they have to create content, and
absolutely.
content is drama.
Absolutely. Yep.
Great, so that's interesting. Well, at least we learned something new here. So, Bea, one of the things that you also do is something called NLP, and I would like to know more about what it is and how this can help people, professionals, or anybody that go through that process.
Yeah, so NLP stands for Neuro Linguistic Programming. So to break that up, neuro is mind, linguistic is language, and programming is the processing and the behavior. So really, NLP is matching your mind with your language and then how both of those things affect your behavior. So I am really interested in NLP because it's all about self-discovery, and it's all about the subconscious. And what we know, especially with what I study with body language and what you've heard on different interviews you've done here, I'm sure with body language in general, saying isn't coming out of our mouths.
Right.
It's nonverbal cues that we're giving. So for me, NLP is a way to train my subconscious to program myself in a way that's most effective. So one of the things I can talk about quickly is called anchoring.
Mm-hmm.
And anchoring is a process that you anchor a spot on your body to a feeling that you want to feel. So if you're a speaker, for instance, or you're going into a feel nervous, anchoring is an NLP technique where if you want to feel confident, brave, smart, whatever it is that you want to feel, there is a technique that's taught where you can actually trigger yourself to feel that feeling at any moment you want by literally touching a spot on your body that you have anchored. So if I'm ever going on stage, what I have is I have an anchor. It's on my knuckle.
Mm-hmm.
That is my confidence anchor. And if I'm feeling nervous, I will hit that anchor. I'll just put my finger on my knuckle myself to feel that emotion when I hit my knuckle. And it's a super simple, I mean, if you want, I can take you through the technique right now. It's a super simple
Yeah,
technique.
that'll be actually very useful. I think, I've heard of that before, and it's kind of it's something that you can actually do when there's nothing else helps to do
Absolutely.
that. So yeah, why don't you describe it so people who
Okay,
listen to it can actually do it
great.
now? Yeah, we can do that
Okay,
now.
so what is the emotion that we want to anchor?
So let's say we want to anchor fear of speaking before a small group.
Want to anchor fear, we want to anchor the opposite. So why don't we do confidence?
Mm-hmm.
If that's what you want to, because obviously if fear is there, confidence isn't. So why
Right.
don't
So
we?
you feel a bit of the warmth inside, and you kind of feel a bit of a sweatiness
Yes, yes,
as they introduce you, and you start walking towards the center of the space where you're supposed to start saying something, and people are just looking at you, and that's the worst moment.
yes. Oh, absolutely. And that at that point your fight or flight kicks in, and
Uh-huh.
you either make it or you don't make it. So
Correct.
okay,
And your
okay.
voice kind of starts trembling a little.
And so you probably
Mm-hmm.
feel it in your body as well. I mean,
Correct.
there are all sort of and those are also see okay, so this is interesting that you're saying these things because all of those things that you're saying, the trembling,
Mm-hmm.
all of those are anchors that we already have. So for instance, when you say public speaking,
Mm-hmm.
you are anchored into the tremble, the whatever, I mean, the things that you're saying, you could be anchored into. Just like if somebody said your mother's kitchen, and you could be anchored into the smell that you smell when you walk into your mother's kitchen, or it's a 90s, you hear that song and it brings you back to a specific memory and you feel that emotion. So that's all we're doing with anchoring. We are anchored to so many things. If you think of an ex that maybe you didn't break up with on great terms,
Mm-hmm.
and you feel that feeling so deeply, you're anchored to that feeling in connection to that person.
That's true.
So that's all that this is. So okay, I'll take you through the process. It's short; it won't take long, and so that anybody listening can take themselves through the process as well. And if confidence isn't the thing you want to anchor, you can anchor something like this. So, okay, close your eyes, and I want you to first pick a part on your body. I like knuckles because they're not often touched. So you could do knuckles, you could do knee, you could do your
Okay.
earlobe. Just pick a part on your body that you want to anchor.
Mm-hmm.
So that when I say touch, that's the part of your body you touch. Okay.
Okay. Ready.
So I want you to go back to a time where you felt completely confident. Specific time. And I want you to hear what you heard, feel what you felt, and see what you saw during this time that you felt completely confident. At the height of feeling confident, hit your trigger point on your body. And then as soon
Perfect.
as that emotion starts to lessen a little bit, take your finger off and open your eyes. Okay, now shake it out, open your eyes, shake it out.
Yeah.
This is called a break state. So
So,
get out of it, get
kind
out
of,
of it.
stand up, right? A little bit.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Okay, then close your eyes again.
Excellent.
Okay, I want you to go back to that same instance where you felt completely confident. This time the feelings are heightened. It's like you're there. You see the colors more vividly. You hear the sounds more clearly. You feel you were there right now. And at the height, touch your trigger.
Perfect.
And as you start to lessen that feeling, take that trigger finger off. And when you're ready, open your eyes and shake it out. So that
Wow.
is the basic process of anchoring.
Hmm.
It's really simple. Now, going through it 2 times, you may not be anchored, but why don't you put your finger on wherever your trigger was. We've broken the state, and tell me what comes up for you.
So you want me to describe the what I feel?
Yeah, yeah.
So I kind of, what I feel is a little bit of a boost because the fact that I went back to the memory and touching and untouching, it kind of brings me back there to that memory and not where I'm now. In this case, for example, standing in front of this little group here.
Exactly. So that's the point of anchoring. Now, if you want to do this over and over again, so maybe as a challenge for the audience, do this twice a day, every day for
Hmm.
7 days. Just do 2 of these triggers, right? And then at the end of 7 days, you should be pretty anchored into that feeling so that wherever you are, whether it's just about to get on stage or whether it's going on a first date or whether it's walking into a courtroom or whatever, you can put your finger on that trigger and you're now anchored into that emotion.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's a very powerful exercise. Very simple. I mean, imagine. I'll give you another example. We're professionals. We meet clients all the time. Sometimes clients are angry. We're about to go and meet an angry client. As we walk into the room, we can do this before we enter that space, right?
Exactly. These can be used for anything you want. And I mean, quite literally, I have an anchor for all of my knuckles. One's confidence, one's bravery, one's smart. I mean, you can anchor as many different emotions as you want.
I see. So what you're saying is that it's not always touching the same spot. You want to basically anchor different spots so you know that this is now associated with confidence. This is now associated with. Okay, that is the
Exactly.
principle.
Yeah, and if you are ever feeling, so if you have the confidence anchor already in
Hmm.
place, if you are ever in a natural state of confidence, you're like living in confidence at
Right.
that moment, if you can remember to touch that anchor, it will be, I mean, because live moments, I mean, we're stimulating these anchors right now. We're going back
Of
into the
course.
past and bringing out these emotions. But if we can have the emotion right then and there and anchor that in, those are really, really strong anchors.
I love it. I mean, I think this is a great tool. I mean, but it kind of brings me to what I wanted to ask you next. We do this because we have all these fears or we don't feel comfortable. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think are some of the triggers where we know if somebody like or trust someone or not? And I think that's something that is very important because if we are trying to provide service to somebody or we're trying to get somebody to hire us, we need to know some of these triggers. So maybe we can kind of go through those.
Absolutely, absolutely. So here's the thing about, and I'll just ask you. Okay, so here's
Hmm.
the thing about whether we like somebody, and it's very people who are like us or who we want to be like. So I'm going to
Hmm.
ask you, and for the audience, think about this as well. Think about someone who you get along with.
Okay.
Okay, now think about someone who you don't get along with.
Hmm.
Chances are the person you get along with is similar to you or similar to what you want to be like, and the person you don't get along with isn't much like you at all.
That is true.
It,
Absolutely.
it- exactly. So what we want to talk about here is rapport. This is also NLP. building rapport is one of the most important and crucial things that you can do in getting somebody to like or trust you. What rapport is being, in its simplest form, again, it's being like somebody. So we call it mirroring and matching someone. So if we were sitting together and you were crossing your legs and leaning in, if I wanted to build rapport with you, what I would do is cross my legs and lean in.
Mm-hmm.
If you were a great, we can also use our voice. So if you were speaking to me, for instance, and you had a everything was on high gear and it was like this, then what I would do is I would heighten, my voice would go higher and I would talk really fast. I would match you. So what you want to do is if you're going into a room to say meet a client, right? Gauge where they are, their tone, their body language, look at them and be like them. This is really, really important because it cues them into your like and trust factor, because all of a sudden you become like them. Because even when I start to get really quick and I talk really fast and I'm whatever it is and I'm really expressive, that's not how our interaction is right now. So it feels, even though I'm not seeing you, it feels, even on my end, uncomfortable to do that. It feels much more comfortable to have a conversation where I'm matching your tone and tempo. And it probably makes you feel more connected to me to know that here we all of a sudden feel similar.
Right, and I think this is some of the tips they actually tell people when they try to get somebody to like them on a dating personal level, where you try to mimic their movements, and then you become closer to them, right?
And mimic their language. So if they're using words like amazing, then in your
Mm-hmm.
sentences you're using words like amazing. This is all, again, subconsciously triggering the other person. Because what happens is when we meet somebody, we have so many, our brain is trying to capture so many thoughts. We have so many processes going on and tons of new information when we're meeting somebody, right? Is this person friend or foe? Can I trust or not trust this person? So if you can take those questions out of the picture, by being like somebody, all of a sudden, by process of elimination, they say, oh, I can trust me. I like me. Why wouldn't I trust and like this person? That's the subconscious dialogue that's happening.
Exactly. And so, and the thing is, it's hard for us to understand that on a daily basis. So I think if you break it down this way, it just makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it becomes much easy. It's so much simpler than we make it out to be. I think when we think about first impressions and being popular or being the confident one, if we were to simplify it, it's actually quite an easy skill to start building. If you just think at its very basic, mirror and match. Be like the person that you want to like and trust you.
Right. Exactly. Bea, something that I think I'm curious to see what you're going to say about this, and these are some of the key body language, and we always try to figure out people. I try to do it on a daily basis, just because of my work as an attorney. But techniques that you can share with us on three things. First of all, how to come across as more confident, how to come across as more trustworthy, and finally, we all want to be more attractive. So those are the three things that I'm curious to know, and maybe we can start with the confidence.
Great, yeah. So confidence is all about taking up as much space as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to be, I am a whopping 5'2". So this is a tricky one. So I get what it means to not have that much space to take up. Nobody can guess how tall I am when I'm sitting down because of how much energetic space I take up. So I want to just put that out there for the short people. Like this applies to you too, and it's okay if you don't have that much physical body. Energetically, if you show up big, people will feel like you are big. So you want to make sure that you are standing wide and taking as much space up as possible. So that means framing your feet to your hips, right? Shoulders back. It's, again, so simple. If you just think big, your chin is up. You want to make eye contact, and you want to have, again, so when it comes to mirroring and matching, so when the handshake is so important. It's such an interesting small thing, but it's so important. If you're making eye contact with somebody and then you do the basic three pump handshake and you are matching their handshake, I think a lot of us, what we want to do to be confident is to squeeze the crap out of
Mm-hmm.
somebody's hand until it's blue. But if you can just match their handshake, use eye contact, don't break eye contact. Those are three super, super simple techniques to be more confident. And they're effective. They're really effective.
And I think you've done a little bit of that in the presentation where I've seen you, where you kind of, we showed how you can become bigger and you feel confident when you do that movement as opposed to being more closed inside.
Yes.
Perfect. How about trustworthiness?
So I'm going to take this back. I mean, I know you probably want new techniques, but I swear by mirroring and matching. Add one more new element. It's using open body language. So instead of crossing your arms, instead of crossing your legs, use open body language to cue trust. But trust is built by like matches like. So I just want to stick with mirroring and matching because it's the
Okay.
most effective thing to build trust non-verbally.
So essentially trying to, but how do you do it in a subtle way? So let's say I meet with you and I sit down in front of me and you put your kind of, you're touching your chin. I should kind of slowly do the same obvious way.
Exactly. I wish we could be on camera right now because I would show you this, but it doesn't need to feel forced and it doesn't need to feel obvious.
Mm-hmm.
So you're exactly right. Like for instance, if somebody has water and they took a sip of water, I would then take a sip of my water. And it doesn't feel obvious if you're doing it naturally. Now, if it feels, I mean, there's a difference between doing this and it feels staged than doing this and it just is sort of the natural way your body moves. So you want to make sure, I mean, practice people who you're comfortable in front of, because you'll know what feels natural and what doesn't feel natural. And the other thing is you don't need to do everything. What you'll know, this is how you know you've built rapport with somebody. It's called pacing and leading. So at the beginning of a conversation, if I want to build rapport with you, I'll copy the things that you do. Then the way that I check if we are actually in rapport is that I'll do something first. And if you mimic me, then I know we're in rapport and I'm now leading.
Go ahead.
That happens naturally. That happens. This is, if you notice best friends, if you take two best friends, they finish each other's sentences. Sometimes they'll come out of their house wearing the same kinds of clothes. They use the same language. So think about it like that. Maybe you and your best friend have this, right?
Right.
Think about doing that with somebody else. It becomes very natural.
I see. So it's you don't think about it, but it just happens, and then as you become more natural at that, then you become obviously trustworthy.
Exactly. And you'll notice people's reactions are different. You'll notice people's reactions are different to you than they have been if you haven't done this.
Perfect. And so, how about more attractive? I mean, what does it even mean? We attractive because we want people to be connected with us on different levels.
Of course. And there's often the word charisma gets thrown around. Like, how are you the person with charisma? How are you the person in the room that
Yes.
no one can take their eyes off of, right? And that, I think, is a question to answer. What I always say is be the one who asks the questions and not the really interesting questions, because what happens is that often we will, first of all, let me just back up here. Our brains are so programmed to be bored when people ask us, what do you do? I mean, we've heard that so many times. It happens all the time, right? So if we're the ones who ask, maybe instead of what do you do, what do you love to do? We become, and our brains then switch off from lazy mode, like, oh, a million people have asked me this tonight, to, well, I don't know my answer to that question. So there's one thing. Be the one who asks the interesting questions. Other things you can do with your body is you can use something called the eyebrow flash. And this is where you raise your eyebrows up just briefly.
Mm-hmm.
It's the universal sign for acknowledgement. And what we love as human beings is we love to be acknowledged. We love it. So if you can find a way, verbally or non-verbally, oh my goodness, you are 10 million steps ahead of the game. And
Wow.
what's interesting is it's proven that even if it's not true, so even if I said, Jacob, your golf game is so good, and it wasn't true, you believe it. There is a belief system that you have built that
Right.
all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, you know what? Maybe my golf game is good.
Well, the
Or
way
if
you
I,
said it, I definitely believe it.
yeah, right, exactly. Or if I say, you are such an incredible host. I have had the best time at your event. I don't know how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
This is too. If you can acknowledge somebody in a way that not everybody is acknowledging them, we love it. As human beings, it just feeds us, and we end up subconsciously believing it. And it doesn't matter if it's true.
This is so powerful. I think, I'm taking some notes here, and we're going to have them, of course, in our show notes. But yeah, simple things, but it makes a whole difference. In the way
Exactly.
So, Bea, as we come to the end of our show, and I can ask you, I have tons of questions and we can spend hours here, but one thing that you can leave our listeners with, some tips that will help them to get ahead in their business or in their communication, what would that tip be, or a couple of tips?
So let's see, based off of what we were just saying,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things I would say is that we love to talk about ourselves. If you can get somebody talking about themselves, you're 10 steps ahead of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Body language is also key because it's up to 93% of our communication. I mean, there are studies anywhere from that say nonverbal is 60 to 93% of our communication. So I would say pick a couple of body language cues that feel the most natural to you and build those. Become a master at those. Don't look at all of body language, all of nonverbal communication, all of the things that we talked about today, and try and get a grasp on all of it. Pick two things that you feel like come most natural to you and master those things.
Perfect. I love that. And so, for our listeners that want to connect with you, want to find your website, your email, your whatever you feel comfortable to share, and we'll also put links in our show notes.
Great. So you can find me at bayavoce.com, which is BAYAVOCE. On Instagram, it's Baya_Voce, and you can email me at info@bayavoce.com.
Perfect. And we have links to those in our show notes. And once again, Bea, I'm very, very thankful for you taking the time to be on the show. And good luck with everything that you do.
Thank you so much. This has been great.
And to your listeners who tune in every week and questions, thank you for doing this. And I'm excited to deliver the next episode next week. Have a beautiful day, and we'll talk to you soon.